I'm Dave Royer, and I'm here at the NAMM convention in January of 2019. This is my 20th appearance here in Anaheim at the NAMM convention. And what can I say? I started, my first NAMM convention was just after we had started Royer Labs, and I've been peddling microphones ever since. I've seen some interesting things. I think one of the more remarkable things that I saw was the Peterson company that made a name for themselves with stroboscopic tuners for musical instrument tuning. As a gag, what they made was a pipe organ that used beer bottles that were filled with mineral oil for the pipes, and they could play it with MIDI, and they'd have pre-recorded tracks all in MIDI, and they'd go and crank that up, and it would play a tune with empty beer bottles, or in this case, beer bottles filled with mineral oil. In fact, at first I thought that the bottles were simply filled with water, but the people at Peterson clued me in. No, they used mineral oil, because if they had used water, the water would evaporate from the bottles and the organ would go out of tune. I think this maybe even outdid the beer bottle organ. This guy kind of sneaked into NAMM, and he was maybe a little harebrained, to be perfectly honest. And he had this brilliant idea of a microphone that would shoot flames, and he literally had a really rinkety-dink PA system, and he had a backpack with a butane tank, and apparently he had a special cable which contained like plastic tubing going from the butane tank to the microphone, and he could, on cue, make this microphone shoot flames out the end of it, 10 feet tall. And the way that it worked out, I was at my booth, and there were other booths around, and he was in the aisle among the booths, and he was his spiel through this claptrap PA system with a speaker with a scraping voice coil, and then the microphone shot flames halfway to the ceiling, and within 30 seconds he was surrounded by security. Well, and then there was the time that I missed a celebrity because I had to go and answer a call of nature. I left the Mojave audio booth one show, maybe 10 years ago, and I went to go and use the can, and while I was gone, Stevie Wonder turned up at the Mojave audio booth, and he was auditioning microphones, and he literally bought a Mojave Audio 201 FET microphone on the spot, and I came back to the booth literally 2 minutes or so after he had left, and the first thing I heard when I got back to the booth was, "David, do you know who you missed? Stevie Wonder." I would have taken the recording studio techniques classes at Fullerton College, say I can't remember if it was 1984 or 1985, but at the time I was not completely sure about what I wanted to do, and I thought I'd take a few courses on sound recording techniques, maybe with the idea of going into that field. And at that time I was an amateur sound recordist, and I had an old reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I had started experimenting with building my own microphones then, because I didn't have a lot of money then, and the run-of-the-mill Radio Shack grade microphones in the early 80s were pretty dreadful. Back in those days, Radio Shack used to sell these little electret microphones. An electret microphone being a form of a capacitor microphone where the capsule is given a charge in the manufacturing process, so it doesn't need a polarizing voltage. And with those Radio Shack electret mics, the microphone elements were okay, but the supporting electronics were noisy, and they would overload badly with sounds much louder than somebody talking at a distance of, say, 5 or 6 inches. So for any kind of serious recording, they were unusable. And I started out experimenting with redesigning the electronics in the microphones to try to improve on them, and then things kind of developed from there. I did live recordings of music, and you can't record a group of people playing ethnic music on acoustic instruments if you don't have microphones. And the inexpensive microphones I started with gave badly substandard performance. The recordings, you could hear that people were playing music, but the recorded sound was far short of a commercial recording. And I had done at one point, I did volunteer work at a radio station, and I was able to use professional quality microphones with the old reel-to-reel tape recorder that I had at the time, and I quickly discovered what the tape recorder was capable of, and I realized that the microphones that I had at the time were badly substandard. At the very beginning, the sound was not good. I had to work for a pretty fair length of time to get the sound to where it was acceptable. But eventually, I was able to make recordings with homemade microphones that were pretty remarkable. And then, somewhat later, as I got more proficient, I was in a position of being able to make recordings that were good enough that they sounded like they were made by RCA, and at that point, hearing those recordings, my reaction was to, hey, I'm getting somewhere with this. During the work week, I'm overseeing quality control for both Royer Labs and Mojave Audio. Both brands are widely distributed worldwide, and we're doing pretty fair quantities of microphones, and somebody has to make sure that each and every microphone that goes out the door is working to standard. And I was the one who was left in the mush pot to do that job. Both Mojave and Royer do Twitter and Facebook and the usual social media culprits, if you will. And we have websites for both companies, so you can y'all can keep in touch with us and see what our newest products are, and the most recent celebrity sightings are, and so forth. I think I'll close this out by repeating something I used to say to a dear friend and mentor of mine. May your microphones be faithful and your preamplifiers quiet.